You're listening to the Furlough Podcast, your break from everyday life with hosts Chris and Dave.
This show is dedicated to the loving memory of Katherine Hines, the highly supportive wife of Arthur Hines, who plays Professor Metz. All right, guys, welcome to the Furlough Podcast. We got the director, producer, and the story by for Engines of Destiny. Is that correct? Yeah, are you guys ready? Ish. Yeah. Well, I know we had a few other extra people on here when I was reading your credits, and I'm gonna go ahead and say right out of the gate, there's two things that sold me on this movie before we get deep into it. First of all, I love Zeppelins, so whoever's idea was that, I thought that was the greatest idea, and I have questions for that. I also like Teddy Roosevelt, and I know as soon as I saw, and Dave and I kind of laughed about it, I was like, as soon as I saw you walking before, right out of the gate, I was like, man, that looks like Teddy Roosevelt. They gotta be channeled.
Yeah, it would have been a problem if I wasn't Teddy Roosevelt. Like, what are you talking about?
It would have been, but I was like, it's gotta be. But I won't hit on this long, but the first fight scene, and I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers. I'm sitting there watching, and the biggest smile came on my face because I am friends with Dan Sawyer.
You know the Mad Dog.
I know the Mad Dog, and I saw him, and I was like, "There's Mad Dog." That's exactly what I said.
Popping up in everything.
So of course and I had no idea that he had done this. He does so much, you never know where you're going to see him pop up at. And so anyway, of course, I'm longtime friends with his brother Chris, and so of course I texted him. So two things that sold me right out of the gate was those two. So, but I have a thing at the end about him. If y'all do a sequel, I think he should be the bad guy.
He'll be like a cyborg or something.
Right.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
There's one issue we'd have to resolve before that.
Just a minor issue.
His death. I will say that I think you could work that out in a good storyline. I think that would be a good one. But,
steampunk.
and it's funny that you mentioned that. I got a lot of steampunk vibe on that, and I was sitting there, and not that I'm in that realm a lot, but just the cues were very evident, in some of the stuff. And who did the props? I wanted to.
Really? Yeah. We tried to make it as functional as possible.
Right.
We didn't want it. You go to these science fiction conventions. There's a lot of beautiful steampunkery out there, but I mean, it's totally for aesthetics.
Right.
And what works for like cosplay and walking around at a con wouldn't really fly like on a TV show or a movie. Mm-hmm. Partly because the props have to function, they got to do stuff, and then although it's not apparent initially, but when you think about it, it starts becoming really, really important. His character owns the company that makes everything you see in the movie, virtually.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
So you run into problems where if you've got a bunch of wild, wacky, just tubes stuck together and everything's brass, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, and it's supposed to be products coming out of his advanced...
and our professor is the one who's designing. One person designs all these things, basically, the big, sexy stuff.
For me, though.
Right.
Yeah.
My character, yes.
Yes. You own
They're mine.
You have receipts.
You have receipts. And
so anyway, the point was they had to look. They kind of had to share like a family, like a genealogy, like you could tell. Oh, this is all designed by the same guy, and a lot of times you'll introduce a prop and you won't know what it does for a while, which is kind of what the movie is about. And you need to kind of look at it and know immediately, I think I know what that thing is.
Right. And I got that because, I'm weird in my own right because I do mechanical design work.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there looking at it.
I'm afraid of you.
No, don't be afraid of me. I loved every bit of it.
How judgmental were you?
I was not at all.
That's a bunch of hooey right there.
I loved every bit of it. I geeked out on a little bit of it. I was like, I enjoyed it. But I'm a movie fan too. And so, movies like this, James Bond movies, just all different kind of movies. And try not to get ahead of myself. Were y'all channeling Billy Jack with the Commodore's bodyguard?
Ty.
Ty?
Yeah.
No, actually, when I came up with that character, my thought was have you ever seen Lethal Weapon 4 with Jet Li?
Absolutely.
Again, it's steampunky, and that's why we went with the Tai Chi out in front of the hat and everything. But he, in that movie, Jet Li's very quiet.
Absolutely.
And Phil, who is very talented, he's also one of the producers, but he was happy not to have to speak.
Oh, okay.
For one, and but he's quiet and always sort of like seems to enjoy and embrace all the madness when he should be scared or whatever.
Well,
so
that's the great thing about your movie. It was very interpretive. You know what I'm saying? Because I was sitting there watching different stuff, and I'm looking at all the characters. Obviously, TR right out of the gate, I was like, man, that seems like Teddy Roosevelt. But when I was watching the movie, to me, he seemed like Billy Jack.
Sure.
And I was like, it just makes sense with the hat and the facial expressions.
Well,
that's what I
And
envisioned.
there's another angle. It was as much a Western as it was a steampunk movie. And so, you've got, if you watch Hell on Wheels,
Absolutely.
you've got the badass Asian.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have the imported Chinese, rail workers and stuff in a lot of Westerns. You can go to TV shows like Briscoe County Jr. Heck, even I didn't mind it. I liked the Lone Ranger movie.
Yeah.
And these are bits and pieces, not so much of the lore as they are bits and pieces of the TV and movie lore.
Right.
So we've got Phil, who winds up being the hired assassin of mysterious past, hired from abroad.
nearly superhuman.
Nearly superhuman.
Yeah. He's like, well, how'd you even get up here?
I'm glad somebody appreciated that.
I love that.
Because you saw he was just frozen.
Yeah.
Getting
How'd
away
you get
with
up here? That was my question too.
Yeah.
I was like, I missed something.
Yeah.
So did you guys set out, though, to do a steampunk movie, or was it you wanted to set out to do like a Western?
We did set out for a steampunk movie. It's a funny that you ask. Years and years ago, back when we were like 15 and 16. I'm just kidding. This has taken a while, but we were at if people are familiar with a big fantasy convention in Atlanta called Dragon Con. That year, steampunk garb was what's normally pretty big, but I'd never seen it before.
And that was the year it kind of started to hit the flashover point for being what you saw 2 out of 3 times. 2 out of 3 times.
More mainstream, if you will.
Right, but the funny thing about steampunk is there's no necessarily like for cyberpunk. You have Neo and all the rest from the Matrix, and you have seminal characters. Now there's James West from Wild Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Outside of that, or maybe Artemis, you don't have a lot of seminal characters, and people were just doing their own steampunk thing. And I asked Hunter, I said, Hunter, what is that? And he goes, you mean steampunk? And I said, steampunk. And he described it a little bit. And he said, like Wild Wild West. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, we should do something like that. Cue the psycho music, because that started us the long journey down to here, but we really did.
Hey, that wouldn't be too hard. I mean, we're not going to be working on green screen. We don't have to do a lot of effect shots.
No
It's
Well,
just kinda like a
now
Western.
you did have some really nice.
The
CGI.
irony. Yes, you've picked up on the irony
That's right.
of that
It was
statement.
nothing but nearly.
Oh my God.
It just turned out that way. Funny, the beginning actually, when I was working on the first treatment of the script, the beginning was added last. And part of the thing is, and this was a thought of Hunter's, was you don't even know if you're seeing a steampunk movie. At first, it looks like a Western, like you talked about.
Right.
And I thought it would be kind of neat, given Teddy Roosevelt, that the first line of the movie would be bully.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
up to then, it's a silent film, essentially it is.
it is.
Yeah.
And you really don't maybe get a steampunk feel till you see the dirigible flying off.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you
The
see
funky
Vulcan.
dirigible. That's the whole thing. It was, like not seen in nature dirigible.
Right. But yet another one of Hunter's designs. And before you get back to the station, you start seeing all the stuff, especially when you get to Hamilton Airship Works. You start seeing.
Yeah.
Now, can I? What was the inspiration for that? Because again, my mind works 90-0, so I'm thinking,
which?
The Zeppelins and the different things. Is Vulcandale? I was sitting there watching it. Obviously, Vulcandale, in reference to Birmingham. But did
Alternate history.
Yeah, alternate history. Did you get the cues for Zeppelins because Birmingham has an actual Zeppelin mooring station?
We were aware of that, but I mean, it's just steampunk. You got to have goggles. You got to have top hats. You got, and I mean,
Giant gears and
Giant
Yeah.
gears and stuff?
steam, of course.
dirigibles were something that, in many ways, we were kind of. I think our steampunk story may be on the early side of steampunk being like the 1840s.
Right.
What date does it open?
It's like 1881.
1880.
It's 1880. Okay.
1881 or something like that.
Our dirigibles are something more from the 1920s.
Gotcha.
Most of them, except
Yeah.
the one at the very beginning. So we played fast and loose with that. There's another aspect of the technology that that's the point of the whole movie that's premiering 60 years too soon, which is that mysterious rock that the professor's carrying around.
Right. Which we never got an answer to.
No, well, this is supposed to be part one of a 3-part installment.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So where do I try out at?
Yeah. Exactly. So,
You put in us your show. You're in
anyway,
here.
the originals were to answer the question, they were kind of a given, and then
Yeah.
the actual inspiration where they came from, some of it was what they had to do, and some of it was Civil War. They
Right.
had to look Civil War like, and then like the one at the beginning, it's a boat suspended underneath, a gas bag. And,
Right.
I mean, that's
Which is cool,
Yeah, that's
by the way.
everything from Jules Verne all the way up to The Fifth Element.
Absolutely.
You
I loved it.
The Chinese, because it's actually based directly off the Chinese junk that
Yeah.
Bruce Willis eats.
Yeah, he's eating
Eat Chinese food from from his cab. Yeah, so they had to be there because that's kind of a hallmark. When we're writing the story, right, we got to wind up in a dirigible. But then, as far as the inspirations went, we just kind of wanted to touch on sort of the different aspects of
Right. Well, it's
steampunk, I guess.
and it's funny. I've done a lot of work out at U.S. Steel and different, inspected bridge cranes and different things like overhead cranes and whatever. And back in those times, shipbuilders built a lot of things that were going into modern, industry. And so the big rivets, that whole look is just, I dug it. That's why I was really into it. I watched the movie twice. So
Wow, you're a veteran.
You are now my favorite person.
I watched, and that was twice
I haven't
last
watched
night.
the movie
Yeah,
twice.
I've watched it twice last night.
But it was not under gunpoint or anything.
No,
right?
I totally. Well, the thing I did is I watched it the first time and I was trying to get a feel for it, and then I watched it the second time to try to do some show prep. So it was just I enjoyed the movie. It was really good. I liked it.
1,000 super bounce balls cut in half with a box cutter and then stapled or glued to the wall as needed.
What?
The rivets.
That's the rivets.
Oh,
We went on Alibaba and bought a box of 1,000 super bounce balls, the type you get in gum machines, right?
Yeah.
And we had to fight the temptation not to just use them as a prank somehow.
Yeah.
I said, no, we have to do
have
it
to cut
for
them.
the aesthetics of it.
Wow.
Brian actually sat at a table while we were building one of the sets and was cutting them in half with a box cutter. He cut his thumb pretty bad.
Oh no.
And then I had a Brad stapler, and then we built everything out of what was called hardboard, which is a very thin, smooth finishing board for walls. It's cheap and get it at Home Depot. Yeah. We would cut it into strips and build girders or the hockey cane or
A candy cane or
Candy
a hockey
cane
stick.
and hockey stick.
Depending on how you look at it.
these the Elizabethan type or Victorian, girders that have the holes cut out to save weight,
Yeah.
And then we'd put the little half super bounce balls on and, nail gun them in, and then paint the whole thing gold.
And
copper.
you guys should know the dirigible set and the Commodore's office, number one, right next to each other.
They're in a basement.
They're in a basement at our friend's house.
They share a common wall.
Ty's house, the Asian bad guy.
Yeah.
That's his house. Hunter somehow talked him into us basically taking his entertainment room. We ripped down his drop ceiling and built those two sets there.
That is fantastic.
And so at one time we had 3 sets at his house.
That's a friend right there.
Oh yes. Well, he was a co-producer. That was his thing. We'd always, you'd ask him, he'd go, "You okay?"
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. It was obvious that you did some scenes over at Sloss Furnace.
Yes, lots of them.
But then
They
where
were
was the
great to
rest
us.
of them at?
The first one was Tannehill, right?
Tannehill, yes.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is, and I want to shout out to the Birmingham community. If you just ask here, it hasn't become institutionalized, or well, that's a bad way to put it. It's still informal enough. You can just go ask somebody, say, "Hey, do you mind if we film here?" And Tannehill, they didn't charge us. They just said, "Hey, just tell them you're here to."
Hell, they waived the charges. They
will.
were like, yeah, just tell them you're with the movie crew and they'll let you into the gate.
Sloss Furnaces gave us the photographer's rate. We didn't have to rent out the place. Now, that did mean when we were filming, people could come through and we could not impede their progress.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. We have a lot of time. We have a very small footprint. Like I think the most we carried around with us was 9 people. Okay, and exterior day, we're typically not going to have any lights. We might have a reflector. Convincing people we were not going to pull up with trailers and just sort of take over. We're like, no. they're like, well, we don't want to close down over there. You don't have to close down. We're cool. We can hold the role while people walk through the background. We can, we can choose a different angle. We can do whatever. We can work with you.
Right. And I was going to ask that question, and it's funny you answered the question before I got to ask it. Was how difficult was it to get people to buy off on this stuff?
It wasn't difficult at all. In fact, there's a big fight scene. We Phil, again, one of the other producers, not here. He ran off to Hawaii to live.
Poor guy.
Yeah, he's suffering.
I lived there for a couple of years too.
Oh my God, beautiful. But we just asked him, said, "Hey, can we?" This guy bought the old Jimmy Hale mission and was having it refurbished and everything to be a home. And we just asked him. He said, "Yeah, sure, come on in, no problem." And it's funny, every time we'd go there, sometimes it'd be months in between filming. Right, we're doing this fight scene, we're having to piece it together. The first time we go in there, it's pretty torn down and built up. The next time we walk in there, we walk into a fully furnished garage with cars in there. We're like, are we in the right place? We started looking around. He walked downstairs, hey guys. But that people just never gave us a problem. We were filming at Sloss. We talked about a big scene with Dave and I. Lots of dialogue, right?
Right.
Everybody's walking around. It's a beautiful spring day. Sloss is pretty crowded, actually. Mm-hmm. And, Hunter would say, quiet on the set, please. And everybody would get quiet. People would get out of the way. And David, again, this is dialogue heavy. We had no problems whatsoever.
No problems at all.
That gives you a little hope for humanity. That there are people that will just be considerate, for what you're
polite,
doing.
they're polite. And that's, film crews do have a bad rep, and it's well-deserved. And there's an excellent Simpsons episode about that, by the way. But we found that where we were polite and gave consideration to the people who are just walking around, then we got exactly the same. And the other thing was, we had people in costume. We had a crane. We had some toys out there. So we looked legit and we became part of the show. So people didn't mind pausing for a moment at Sloss because they got to see this really interesting thing happening.
It was a fascination for them.
Right. And then when we were we were in one little locale that was not, I guess, a high value place at Sloss. So they didn't mind looking in, just kind of watching for a while. When they got bored, they'd wander off. There was plenty of stuff to do at Sloss and didn't involve us.
So I know there's a lot of editing involved in that. So when did you shoot?
Just pretty much.
Shot and let it go. So when did you shoot that? How long ago?
Well,
Which time?
Yeah, the principal videography started in November of 2011. We finished up our reshoots. I think it was August of 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's taking a minute.
You threw a hand grenade against a step in my backyard in 2018, which made it to the final cut. Mm-hmm. So the last live action photographed element was 2018.
Man, so that was a long process. So I saw the premiere over at Ghost Train when you guys had it out there. Yeah. And so one of the things you talked about, so Hunter, you were up on stage, you kind of did an intro, and then you did a Q&A at the end. And you were talking about how you were on a limited budget, for the movie.
Out of pocket.
Right. So limited. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really impressed me was the special effects. And I'm being serious because you had...
That's good to hear, honestly, because we don't really have an objective lens on that.
Well, my question is how much of your budget went to that? Because obviously it wasn't real blimps and all that kind of stuff.
None.
Sure it was.
Right. So, but how did you work that? And who was that guy that created all that? Was that you, Hunter? Or?
Okay.
Or is that giving things away?
This is where we should break and do a separate podcast. Oh, God. Holy crap. That's a can of worms. So here's the deal. The first effect shot filmed was the dirigible at the very beginning, right? And that was how we intended to do all of them. I'm a miniatures guy. We were going to build them as miniatures. And I built that thing as proof of concept. It worked. It looked good. I still have it. It was motorized, and
awesome.
Budget-wise, I probably put $100 into that thing.
Oh,
maybe.
wow.
Nothing. And I've got a stockpile of things.
Right.
You'd be surprised to know that the gas bag is 2 styrofoam cylinders connected by wooden rods, draped with cotton fabric, and then I covered the seams. I meant it to be wrinkled and covered the seams with string and used string as rope. Anyway, it became apparent that to do the kind of stuff we wanted to do in the final battle, we did what it was we kind of never wanted to do, which is to go full digital.
Right.
And the problem is, for all of our particular genius, we've got good wardrobe people, good makeup people, good props people, good actors. We actually don't have a digital guy. We don't actually have a CG guy. So we, through necessity, went back. Before I suggested it, I did some test footage, and it worked. And I showed it to both of these guys and told them, be brutally honest, and they were amenable. But we went back to a piece of software that was written and sold in the 1990s called Ray Dream Studio.
Wow. Okay.
And
Dust comes off the computer when he uses Ray Dream. And by the way, before we forget, we got to give a big shout out on the special effects to Jason Wood. Some
the
more
fight.
The mech fight that was a nightmare, and he actually did that in some other scenes. Okay. He's also very talented in this area. I just want to give him a shout out.
Well, that fits into the groove too.
He puts a lot of time in.
That was all green screen. We went to Leo Shelley Productions and we shot the on a green stage for the mech fight at the end. We were up on a wooden platform, so there was nothing, no background. And I provided Jason with a coordinate reference, basically telling him there's a tower over here, the stairs are over here, the water tower's there. Now for the background, I produced the water tower and did the water tower animation where the roof flowers open and where the door opens. Everything else was Jason, okay? So all the backgrounds to that were Jason. Jason keyed. He's the one who pulled a separation from the background with a shiny metal object on green screen. I did my part. I lit it as cleanly as I could for a separation, but we're shooting on a Canon 5D Mark II, which is okay for green screen, but not preferred. Jason was the genius who was able to take a 6-minute scene.
It's around 6 minutes.
It's like 6 minutes of solid green screen, pull all the background, which means separating. We have a for all you effects people, listen up. We got a guy back there wearing glasses. Everybody has frizzy hair. We have a shiny metal mech. And
you have somebody swinging a chain.
Somebody swinging a chain.
Jason created new cuss words about that, and he doesn't cuss. He doesn't cuss at all.
So, like I said, my hat's off to the man. He did that. He did all the green screens, which were no less a problem looking out the window, the dirigible, because the problem with that one was you want your green screen to be 20, 30 feet behind the actors, which we were able to do on the mech fight. In the dirigible, we essentially, the window was at best 24 inches away from the green screen. And anyway, so he was there again. The professor is up against the window, and he's wearing glasses, and he's got frizzy hair. And I would get angry phone calls and hang-ups in the middle of the night from Jason, but he did all of that. What I did, like I said, I did the animation of the water tower, which was initially scheduled to be a miniature, and easily could have been. It would have been gigantic. It would have been the size of this table. And then we're going to do the air battleship scene. We're going to build the
miniatures for it.
For the Chimera was going to be a miniature.
Oh, okay.
I designed it in Ray Dream just to get an idea of how I was going to build it. What I designed was not the final thing. I built a screen ready digital thing. But the point was when we wanted to do shots like there's a shot where you start on the battleship, it fires twice, and you whip pan,
which is awesome because I don't want to give it away, but the two projectiles come by. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You track with the projectiles to see them miss, right? And that has been in my head since the beginning. And it was just I could do that with miniatures, but the point is we did it on a film called Zero Prospect years ago, where we tracked a spaceship. We had no motion control, but we track a spaceship in a pan as it approaches and then recedes toward this giant asteroid, and it's a great shot. Oh my God, what a headache! And that was pre-motion tracking software.
Well, plus you had a miniature for that, or your model.
We had a model spaceship, a model asteroid, which is 4 feet in diameter. We had to track engine glow and track, a star field. It was all done manually, and I would have had to do all that with the cannonballs manually. So digital, I could kind of get it all in one. Although to be honest, what you saw. All of the digital models were composited or generated against a green background for a number of reasons. They are themselves composited against the background. And the background is animated separately, not in the same program because it can't handle that. That's how old it is. The machine that's running it is a legacy Windows XP box. Okay. And I am rendering it 4K typically or 2K. Just to get so that it anti-alias is fine for all you effects heads out there. It anti-alias is okay, But at 4K, I could reduce the image down, and any jaggies created by aliasing would sort of be minimized. But anyway, it was. I always say in the low budget film world, time is a direct substitute for money, and I would say we spent our money on things we couldn't fake, like the wardrobe. And funny, ask Brian about shooting on location, because it was a thing about building sets every time but we spent time on the effects, and
Right.
that wound up being what we spent or burned to get the effect shots you saw at the end, was just lots of time and innovation.
What got you guys into
I have a brain tumor.
yeah.
Yeah, I just got hit in the head really hard.
Well, like I have a friend that he's always talked about being an actor or whatever, good looking guy, should do it. Has, if he could do in front of this camera what he does just improv wise, he'd probably be pretty good at it. But what drove you guys to make a movie? Have you done movies before? What's the background? How do you get into it?
Well, we've been at this since, I guess, Hunter moved down about 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was a kid, I played, Dungeons and Dragons and watched cartoons and comic books. And I always liked to write and all this kind of stuff. And Hunter's been building models since he's small. And I think Dave's pretty similar to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to hop in on that, and so, we decided. It's interesting you say that, because there's really no good answer.
Yeah.
We just have, it's like a common group, say like a Free the Hops group comes together to do things with beer. We just like making movies.
Right?
It's-
Did you guys meet each other at a
We kind of know each
local
other through Jason
event?
Wood.
Yeah, the guy we were talking about earlier introduced us, and I guess I kind of introduced Dave to Hunter. And
These guys made an amazing superhero parody called Snout.
Super Negotiators of Universal Triumph.
I like it.
You too?
These two, that's awesome.
Primarily, yeah.
Hey, where can we see that at?
Oh well, that's.
We'll get you a copy. It's hilarious.
I'll have to rip it off the VHS tape.
Yeah.
Hey, it's what it takes.
But that I guess that's the best way to think
Yeah.
about it. Hunter he made a college movie, or about that time, called Light Duty.
Yeah, Light Duty.
And we did something called 70s Force. Dave was in that, which is a 70s.
And Jason worked on
themed-
both.
Yeah. And so he kind of introduced us and said, you guys ought to get together. And when that happened, it was like, we started
Project after
getting
project,
into it.
Yeah.
All you guys seem like you've been doing it for a while. I didn't know if you had worked like stage stuff or done other things.
He acts professionally.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, excellent.
Professionally, but yeah.
No.
No. You received a paycheck.
I have gotten paid a few times.
Hey, well,
Seriously, he's a good actor.
your role as Commodore was very good. It was very convincing in the sense of human nature goes, where you played against the lady pretty good. You were smart. It was
Rachel was awesome.
Yeah, it was
Oh, yes,
true to
yes.
form.
Yeah.
And it's like every time she kind of snapped back at you, you're like, oh yeah, and then do that. Yeah, let her do her thing, and then you did what you wanted to do
Did what I need
anyway.
to do, yeah.
yeah. So
Then he had enough.
Until
which is true to form.
a
in
man
life.
has limits.
Yeah, everybody has limits, but you two guys work together really well. I mean, it looked good.
Yeah, they had fantastic chemistry.
Yeah.
the two of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and now does she do a lot of things with you guys as well?
She just does a lot of things. Period. She
Also a
does. She
professional
works a
actor.
lot.
She's quite prolific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's very good. Like, I had a little short up in the Rocket City Shorts Festival in Huntsville, and when I went, she was in 3 of those shorts. It's like I kept seeing her. I was like, Lady Victoria again, and Lady Victoria
again. She
and
did
very
great.
very different roles too. She radically alters
Yeah.
her appearance and her
And-
acting. She's very very good.
She's not a Kevin Costner where it's the same movie but a different
that's
storyline.
right. Or Sean Connery. Sean Connery can be Spain. He can be from Russia, but it's always like this. It's always Scottish. So, no, she's more of a chameleon, I'd say.
Well, great choice for a leading lady. I think she did a fantastic job.
Oh, yes.
and
She's
very
awesome.
very convincing. And there's so many things I want to say, but I just really don't want to give. I really don't want to give it away because I really want people to watch this movie.
Well, you can edit it out later.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Ask now and just.
Yeah. Well, it's just. I mean, the things I would say is just the way that she did some of her scenes were just very, very fluid. if you will. She just seemed very comfortable in her movements, her mannerisms,
Oh, yeah.
and how she reacted to the subject that was going on at hand.
We wrote the character, but she actually
She owned
made
it.
her live. She created the character.
So did you write it with her in mind, though?
Yeah.
Well, actually,
no, she was cast.
when I first wrote the first treatment of it, there was no Lady Victoria.
Wow.
I actually stuck her in there, and everybody was like, "Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we could, because I mean,
It was an airship captain, and that had to go. We had
An
to
engineer or
We had to
something.
sort of compress the cast. Is what happened.
see, our two nightmare cast for us was number one, Lady Victoria, because we had to give because we have a bunch of accents, obviously, in the movie.
Yeah.
And that could, if everybody's from Birmingham, you shoot something like that, it's fine. But, if that British accent's bad, you're talking about Kevin Costner, you're back to Prince of Thieves, hello, sir, how are you? and she auditioned for it. And again, she always takes unconventional roles, so this was a lot of fun for her because it's kind of a traditional kind of thing. The other nightmare was finding our professor, who is, again, I don't know. I came up with German inventor. Hunter was fine with that, but we didn't know how we were going to find it.
He pressed me to do the character, and I just again said I cannot direct.
Yeah, because
the movie.
Hunter was actually going to jump in front of camera and be that guy. It'd be a little Peter Lorre-like, a little creepier.
Right.
And because Hunter's creepier.
Yeah.
But kidding, of course. But anyway, we went to Chattacon, another convention, because we were just learning about steampunk, like no kidding. So we went through the whole tract, all the panels. The very last one was a panel on the most popular one: how do you make steampunk costumes? Right. Out of household objects, and these guys could walk in here, take things, and have a steampunk outfit. Well, one of the people running it was Arthur Hines, and he's a professional actor, professional musician, and his cosplay character is a German inventor, and he's age appropriate. I'm like, Hunter, and he's like,
Yeah.
Hunter's like, yes, Brian, but he lives in Dahlonega. You think he's going to run around,
Where's Dahlonega?
That's
Georgia.
Yeah, about an hour and a half outside of Atlanta.
Okay.
So he's 3.5 each way.
Well, I will say this: it was a perfect casting in the sense of being German, because in the term, you said it was, even though it was started out 1881, but you kind of moved more towards the 20s. That was a huge time. I'm a history nerd. That the Germans were doing a lot of inventing a lot of things,
Right.
And so
In our mythology, of course, you don't get into this too much. It'd take more.
But our backstory.
There are two superpowers in the world, and that's Spain and England. You have the German Confederation, which was actually something they were called. Think of them kind of like as Switzerland.
yeah,
Except they're like the world's arm dealers. Like everybody has German-made weapons.
If you want to take over the world, you got to go to the German Confederation.
And so our location in Vulcandale is a British colony that the Commodore, he manufactures airships, but he's also doing these things off book.
yeah.
And he has this brilliant German inventor who's making these toys, but of course, like Dave Lutu, his character owns the toys. And
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's your setting of the world, and if you get farther into mythology, welcome to Amway. If you can only fund us, we would love to show you what happens with the German Confederation.
the Green Rock.
There might,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Now,
right.
you guys are going to continue this, right? You had let the cat out of the bag a little bit earlier. You said that there was three.
Oh yeah,
three
no.
portions.
There's no cat. There's no bag. There are
Yeah.
3 parts of this thing, and if we the only difference between part 2 and part 3 and part 1 is we did part 1 as funding it as we went, and it was not a hardship. I mean, we spent so little money per year, that there are a lot of people. Drinking would cost more money than this.
There
True.
you go.
True.
Well,
But-
especially if Dave was drinking.
But,
Big drink.
Dave, you'd fit right in.
Welcome aboard.
I'll come hang out someday.
but we got to get the money up front because we want to. I mean, this was shootable in like 3 months. This was shootable with the correct kind of funding in a month. You know what I mean? I mean, there was nothing just really that out there. We could have had the whole thing in 90 days if we had money up front, where we don't have to go to our day jobs.
Sure. Would you say the hardest thing was the storyline?
Oh, always. Yeah.
You know.
It's one thing I point out. I'm amazed. There's this group out there, which I'm very happy to diss, called The Asylum.
Okay.
And they're a production company. They do Z Nation for Sci-Fi Channel. They're the ones who do all the rip-off sound-alike movies like Transmorphers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the thing that kills me is they've got funding. And I don't diss their filmmaking prowess because they're perfectly good at pointing a camera, lighting, and even their cheesy special effects are more than passable. I mean, they're many of them are better than what we can do. What kills me is their scripts are so just tremendously horrible. And the thing is, did you know that it cost exactly the same amount of money to make a good script as a bad script?
Absolutely.
In fact,
time,
did
right?
you know that a good script and the bad script have the same words on the page? They're just arranged differently.
Right.
And if you could have the resources that the Asylum has and arrange the words differently, even if you're dealing with a rip-off product like Transmorphers, there's no reason it can't be, for example, Sharknado.
Right.
You know, you can be first of all, you can be cheeseball and stupid and funny, but you can also be low budget and derivative and still a good story. There are a number of products out there in theaters that were hasty ripoffs of supposedly better movies, and the hasty ripoff wound up being the winner. I mean, on TV, the most notable is the Addams Family. I mean, the Munsters was the big budget, at the time, comedy pilot. And I forget who, NBC or whomever, was like, oh crap, we've got to get a creepy, funny show on the air. And they literally threw the Munsters together by raiding the prop department.
Wow.
Now, they did leverage and license the, not the Munsters, the Addams Family. They did license the Addams Family from Charles Addams. But look at the house. It's just like the props department vomited. I mean, that's the bear has been in every that big bear. They make it kind of a joke on the Addams Family. You come in, oh, there's a bear. It's been in all kinds of TV shows, and it's at a prop house on Highland Boulevard in LA right now.
That is hilarious.
But the point is that that was the quickie. That was the ripoff. And it's really the enduring classic. So I'm just saying that. It doesn't matter how little or how much money you have. It's really the story. The story is where everything begins. It's what matters, and it's the part that's the most easy to screw up. And it was important to us to get it right. And it's funny, you go through making a movie is like grief. It's like the stages of grief. I've got a friend, Jeff Ella, who describes it better. What is it? It's optimism, disappointment, and recovery are the three processes of making a movie. And if I'm misquoting them slightly, that's still the idea.
It makes sense, though. You're optimistic to start out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Disappointed when things don't go your way. And then
You have to be really good up front. You got to be really excited.
Yeah.
I think of a film I shot with Mad Dog. We're talking about him earlier.
Yeah.
We shot it out at his place, the House of Pain, where he trains his wrestlers, right? And his brother Chris, I think, trains the MMA guys.
Yeah.
He let us film there, and the first day I come driving up, and I got Dave, some other actors in the car. They're all outside waiting for me. Dan's already in his costume, and everybody's making jokes, jumping around. Okay, where do I go? Where do I go? I was like, well, okay, we'll start out here, blah, blah, blah. By the end, I get a call from Dave, and Dave's like, Brian, I just heard from Mad Dog. I said, yeah. He said, tomorrow is our last day. I was like, yeah, I think I got it planned out. He goes, no, you don't understand. Mad Dog says tomorrow is our last day. And I was like,
Okay.
10-4. Okay.
Yeah, what did that?
No, it was just we had we were co-opting his place where the wrestlers trained.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, instead of us working around their training, they started having to kind of work around us because Dan wanted to finish the movie.
Right.
And I just say that to say this: you got to start off with a lot of momentum, because by the end, it's just you're shoving everybody.
Force of will.
Please, just
we can do this.
It's like a long hike. At first, maybe you're all jazzed and everything, and by the end, you're just trying to make it to the finish line.
But I would think the guys would be, as you get closer to the end, do people not get more kind of re-energized knowing that you're close to a finished product?
It depends. It's not impossible. It depends. Having done a number of films in multiple aspects, it just depends. The tougher the film is, though, inevitably, and it doesn't matter how great the movie is, there is a sense of, come on, guys, we just got to get through the goalposts on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in LA for 10 years in art department. I was a production designer initially, and I came out in '99 because it was just falling apart in LA at that point. Everybody was leaving. They were going to, at that point, Eastern Europe and Canada, and that's where TV wound up, was
Really?
Canada.
Wow.
Everything shot in Canada now.
X-Files would be a
Yeah.
big one.
Oh,
X-Files
wow.
shot in Canada.
And all the what is his name? The guy who produces Stargate and Dark Matter. All of those science fiction shows are shot out of one production company. Anyway, it's all Canada. So basically, I was working more, earning less, and less was being shot in LA. So I wanted to get into camera and shooting anyway. That wasn't going to happen out there with the unions and stuff. Anyway, so suffice to say, every film I ever worked on, when you throw a wrap party because people are glad you got it done, and that's cool. But the last day of shooting really is, come on, let's just kick the ball through the goalpost.
Yeah, let's just
We
push
are
the last
tired.
bit.
We are tired.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So, I mean, do you have roots here in Alabama, or what brought you back, or what was...
My
what-
roots are in Georgia initially, and the internet kind of happened, and that played into things where I realized I did not have to be on the West Coast to be involved in media and media distribution, stuff like that. There was already a big move to Florida. At that time, TV was starting to shoot in Atlanta, and I just realized I was coming home for relatives and stuff like that too. But I got a job offer at Leo Shelley Productions, and I worked there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And Leo, God bless him, got me into high def before high def was a thing, and so I got to get behind the camera and shoot and direct and all that.
Yeah, ironically, Hunter, I think even in one of your bios, you said I had to move back to Birmingham to actually make my own movies.
Yeah, and that was shooting movies in LA. You either had to do it illegally, which people do, or there's just you got to get filming permits and security and fire marshal involvement. And
Isn't
all
that
this other
amazing
stuff.
that there was so much into that? And I know probably Alabama will get that way eventually. The more
Maybe not.
it gets corrupt,
You don't
but
have to.
yeah, but it's just so nice that you can do it. I mean, if you're
It's
not
amazing. It really is.
yeah,
It-
that you can do it.
Well, it's the union that's putting so many restrictions, right?
Some of it, and the city gets involved because they see it as a revenue stream. There was while I was there was a pushback. The permitting process had gotten so draconian that no one could afford. Well, that's not fair. It was very, very expensive. Permits were very, very expensive. The permitting office was very, very slow. And I mean, I was on the movie's Private War. Steve Railsback is the actor. It has, as I recall, still has the longest pipe jump on record. Low budget movie. I think we were in the $250,000 category, right? It's a real action quickie, guns, stunts, you know, cars, and we shot on Hollywood freaking Boulevard, in the middle of the night. That was affordable on a $250,000 budget. We could actually do that in Hollywood, and that was only because they reformed the process by which you could get permits. And they basically, the film industry at that point, and this would say 1994-ish, stepped forward and said, if you do not reform the permit process, we will no longer be able to shoot in Los Angeles. It's that simple. And so they did. They had this major step back. I think permit prices were reduced. I don't remember by how much, and the process was streamlined. And that made things a little better. And they're going through the same stuff again because no one shoots in LA anymore.
Really?
So network TV, I think Lethal Weapon still shoots in LA. But I mean, again, the stuff I watch is all shot in Canada.
Wow.
You know, Monk was shot in Canada. Anything on USA Network
Or
was shot in
Atlanta.
Canada.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Atlanta's a big one now.
All those big Marvel movies are being shot out in Atlanta.
I know The Walking Dead is out there.
Vancouver is where most of your TV comes from. Flat out.
In fact, the nickname for Atlanta now is Yollywood.
Yollywood?
Yollywood.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, if you've seen the Star Wars movies, the Avengers, Marvel, all that's been shot in Atlanta.
Wow.
That's
I'm
awesome.
getting sick and tired of seeing the Marriott in all of these movies, from Hunger Games to Civil War.
But
So, what do y'all see? I mean, as far as any word out there about more movies coming to Birmingham, or
I actually talked to somebody, I guess you could call him a friend of a friend, who he says, I am the most popular person in every room I walk into. I said, really? He said, yeah, I'm the Jack Daniels representative.
there you go, maybe my buddy.
But he actually knows some of these folks in Birmingham. He said there are pipelines to money, and because there's been a couple movies shot here. Dave
Big
actually
Fish.
catered one, the John Travolta movie that was shot in Hueytown.
yeah.
And then there was the big Aaron Eckhart movie where he plays a police officer or whatever. One of our actors, the great Ichabod Temperance, yes, that is his stage name, is he was an extra or something, or he was on the crew.
And they just this year, maybe the first this summer, they were filming an MMA movie here in Birmingham also.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just hope, of course, our big thing is, we want to, that was kind of always our dream, rather than all of us, getting caravanning out to Los Angeles, which
Right.
Hunter's obviously explained thoroughly that's
There's
not
nothing
as
there.
great thing to do. We kind of wanted to bring it to us, and that's what we're still trying to do.
well, yeah, why not build your own? I mean,
Yeah.
it's sort of like what we're doing here today. 10, 15 years ago, would have been crazy expensive, and
Right.
now things are more
Exact
affordable.
same thing is happening on our end.
And so it's you have the ability. I mean, I I just glanced at, doing show prep. I glanced at cameras and obviously your basic cameras wouldn't do what you guys are doing, but even some of the prices on the cameras were less, more than I got to spend, but less than I really thought they would be. I was like, these 4K cameras and this and that, about $1,500, but
they call the democratization of the film industry. The internet did a lot of that, as has, and Hunter's done panels on this about the DSLRs. That's what we used. When you have, still cameras, but it shoots video.
Yeah,
you can, interchangeable lenses, and you can do a lot more. I forget who it was. It may have been George Lucas that said, well, what's going to happen is you're going to get a tidal wave of not so good stuff, but you're going to get diamonds in the rough out there.
Right.
And that's, I guess, we're trying to
just kind of starting
polish.
to see that too. Let me do this real quick. You can edit it out later. But I mean, the story I always tell is before high def was a thing. You could buy film cameras, but a film 35 millimeter format camera, think $300,000. Maybe, there are $100,000 cameras out there and stuff like that, but you're talking, they're not $1 million, but they're not 20 grand either. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you can't buy Panavision, you can only rent, okay? When the two ways I can attack this, I'll go this way. Okay, so look, so there's that. There's your price point for 35 millimeter film. 16 millimeter, you're more in the 30s or 50 grand. You can get one for 16,000, whatever. Okay, so that's making movies, but shooting film has this whole back end that's expensive too. 20% of your budget is post-production.
Right.
Okay, video, fine. Shooting standard definition video, an E&G news camera, a cheap one was 30 grand, an expensive one was 60. Okay, in 1999, the Cadillac of standard definition video was the digital Betacam. It's standard definition interlaced video, but it is digital. So the information it captures is perfect from dupe to dupe to dupe. That's a $63,000 camera that again has a $40,000 playback and record deck, and you can't shoot without the playback deck. You can technically get video off the camera without the deck, but you got to have the deck also. Okay. High def. We moved into the Panasonic Vericam 720p high def, but it's full progressive high def. That was only $60,000. Now this is, I know I'm not trying to tell you that's expensive. I'm trying to tell you how cheap that was. $60,000. You've moved into high def, where standard definition would have been 60 grand 10 years ago. Again, you've got a $40,000 to $60,000 deck, and you're shooting on $40 HDV carts, right?
Right.
You still got to get a $40,000 or $60,000 playback deck with the camera that's 60 grand, but that's an amazing price reduction to go. It's cheaper than standard def was 5 years before. The Red is what really broke the mold. The Red came out, and just the body, not the lenses and all that crap. Do you need to do something technical like swap files? Okay.
No, I was adjusting one mic that I could hear something. Sorry.
The Red's body was, let's say, $20,000. They're it could have been a little more or a little less, but think about this: $20,000 to shoot higher resolution or film-like resolution blows all this other what was Sony's? The Sony. I'm having a brain fart here. The one they shot Clone Wars on and all that. The Red blows that out of the water. Cine Alta, that's it. And this is a $20,000 camera body. You're still shooting on, some of the lenses for the Red were more expensive than the body itself. And it costs more to get the Red built, but still $20,000, less than your car. All right? Now we're shooting on, with a DSLR, it was a $3,500 camera when we bought it that shot 1080p. And you don't need a deck. The deck is gone. Actually, with the Red, the deck was gone too. You're recording onto a hard drive. So the deck vanishes. That's a $40,000 to $60,000 luxury you no longer need.
Right.
DSLRs, 1080p reliably, no deck. You're shooting cards that go right into your computer. Never mind that this is a Galaxy S2, an ancient cell phone, and it shoots perfectly serviceable 1080p video. And I still use it for corporate video when I desperately need a third camera. I've just stuck with this phone because it won't break. But now we just bought the Panasonic EVA-1, which is another cinema body like the Red. it outpaces the Red in almost every way. You could argue that the Red has evolved and there are better Reds now, but I'm saying when they initially entered the market, this is a $7,000 camera that does more than the Cinealta, the Sony Cinealta that they shot Clone Wars on. It does more than the Red did when it was introduced. It certainly does more than the Vericam did. The $7,000 camera can be put nose to nose with the right, DP against film cameras from the 1990s and stuff like that. You talk about democratization. We've seen the price of cameras have gone from being one of the most, capital outlays, the most expensive capital outlays you'll make initially in filmmaking, all the way down to a rounding error in your budget.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to spend more on food than you're on the camera. And I always say we're in the postmodern era of video, which basically means that it doesn't matter what you shoot on. I love the. I actually would recommend, if you've got money, buy the Ursa Mini. The Panasonic works for me. The Ursa Mini, for somebody who's wondering what cinema body camera should I get, you got more bang for your buck there. But it doesn't matter. It's first of all, it's really more about the lens and the camera body. 1, 2, even that doesn't really matter, as lenses are so good now. It's really what's behind the camera. It's how you light. It's how you shoot. It's how you tell the story.
And I guess that's where I was kind of pulling full circle around to you where you were talking about it. It goes back to the storyline.
Yeah.
I would say storyline and characters.
Characters.
Because characters can still be interesting. I think, to go to his point and y'all's point, if you think about it, special effects have gotten so good as a standard. Back in the 80s, if you had some decent special effects in a crappy movie, it's like having a horrible movie but with cool fight scenes.
Right.
You can fast forward to get to the fight scenes and the cool. Well, these days it's pretty standardized. You can find it bad, and so I think that's kind of brought everything back. Even notice these days, back in the day when Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks or Julia Roberts could open a movie. These days it's all franchise centric,
right.
Unless they're hooked up with the Avengers or Star Trek or something. They don't have the big mega openings. So I think it's come down to character, how well they how interesting they are,
right,
and story.
Do you think? And I'll go way off the subject here. And do you think that most of the movies like you guys are making is going to be more streamed online, make it easier for people versus people going to places to see your movie?
We'll tell you in a year. I would say definitely. The goal is purchase, probably still at this point, over streaming, but I don't know. Dave has looked into that. We're going to talk about that today. But that's the question that filmmakers like us are facing right now.
Well, when was it Sony or what was it, when they did the interview, and they had the hack and everything, and so of course they didn't put it out and they ended up streaming. I have a touch of conspiracy theory. I was like, I think they were just kind of testing the waters for the online streaming.
Oh, whoops!
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah,
What?
I was thinking. I think they were just using it as an excuse. See, they wanted to see how well they could pull from online, and it did very well. And I have a decent TV. There's people that's got a lot better TV, surround sound, all that stuff. Some people don't like people. And so is it easier for them to stream, online and sit in their nice man cave or house or whatever? And if you're paying $7, $8, $10, whatever the price may be, even $18, because go to the movies is expensive. But if you said, okay, well, yeah, I can have 4 people over and we can stream the movie for $12. Or even if you charge $15 or $17, because the people it's not going to be just one person sitting and watching the movie.
Right.
So if we're going to stream it online, it's $18. Well, hell, if I had 4 people with me, I'd rather stream $18 on a nice home theater unit than drag all my buddies to the movie.
Theater where it's been. I think it's been heading this way. Obviously, you got Netflix and all these others for a while. You could see it with video games. I remember back in the dark ages, we all used to go to the arcade.
Yeah.
These home systems started getting better and better and better, and now arcades are like payphones. You just don't see them too much.
Yeah.
They're novelty more than
They're
kind
going
of
for a whole different experience.
And I think that's what movies have become, because I still like going to see the movies, but you always have maybe some chatty kids or people talking loudly on their cell phones,
A foot on the back of your seat.
and that you tell them to move it and they move it, and like 10 minutes later there it is again. You're just like, and then of course you can stop and go to the bathroom anytime you like.
So on that note, where can people see your movie? How do they?
Well, as of right now, we are selling DVDs. We are about to open up a portal where you can buy those, but we're actually going to discuss that today. We're still in the screening process. We premiered it. We're doing festivals, and if you go to filmfreeway.com and look for either Engine of Destiny or Hunter Kressel, Engine of Destiny will pop up. And that will kind of tell you where we're going and what we're doing.
Yeah, well, we do need to.
Let's hit the Facebook and all that.
Yeah, we've been talking about we do want to make, eventually we'll kind of run out of this initial little parade we're throwing, for the opening and get in a good place where, like you're talking about, there's a very, very good chance that's exactly where we're headed. Because, it's only, another problem, when I say problem, is its length. It's really a television pilot at this point because it's about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
I did too.
I thought.
Did I mention you're my favorite new person?
But listen, you even had a good following at Ghost Train. You had a good little group there, and they were enthusiastic. I looked around and I watched people's reaction to it, and people were getting sucked in.
But you didn't have a lot of BS filler in there, and I think a lot of times it's almost like a musician putting out a record,
padding it,
and it's like, I got to make X amount of time, And to me, you got the story done. You got your first part of your story done. The characters were established. It just, where you ended it just made sense. It's just like a conversation. There's no point in dragging on a conversation if it doesn't make sense. You started and ended for that first part, where I liked it.
Yeah, a lot of independent films, they always strive for the film festival circuit. And like Brian was saying, we don't really fall into that because the length is 45 minutes. They generally want it to be either a short, which is about 20 minutes or so, or a feature, which is 90 minutes or so. And so we're kind of right in the middle.
Yeah.
So
they call it no man's land.
It's the second time we've done it, too.
But we kind of just prefer letting the story take and begin and end where it needs to versus padding it and just try to fit
Well,
in.
I understand that if in a situation where like that they've got to break it up into categories. So so you have to draw lines in the sand. You have to say, well, you can't be over this or you can't be under that. That makes sense. I'm just saying, for what you guys did, it was comfortable. The story was comfortable. It started and ended in a good place for me. And so I think you guys got a lot. I'd like to see you guys continue on and do the other parts.
Yeah, we would love to do that.
Yeah, we
really
would. There's a lot of fun stuff coming. And we're not talking, and this is going back to what Brian and Dave said. It's the fun stuff coming is we've got a couple of high concepts in there. There's a James Bondian MacGuffin that's kind of neat. But what we're itching to tell is where the Commodore goes from here, for example.
Right.
Where all the characters go from here, because it's not linear.
Well, the thing is too, a lot of the story arcs I have, it's interesting how they wind up not just opposing each other, but actually wind up having to work each other.
Yeah.
So
well, I don't know. I like that. I think. Okay, let me ask this question, and for your fans that are going to like this movie and stuff like that, when you get to the point, are you guys to shoot more? Are you going to do casting calls to kind of figure out new characters? Sort of like you ended up with your professor by happenstance. Mm-hmm. You may end up with another professor the same way, just having people show up at, say, like when you did your Ghost Train thing, say have a dress up party or whatever. Throwing things out there. So if you had a quote unquote, we're going to do another showing at Ghost Train and come in costume, and it may fuel you for, say, hey,
is this a pitch?
No, I'm asking. I always ask questions on how you could do.
Sure, it's a good idea because number one, with funding, with funding, obviously we can have full casting calls.
Yeah.
Right.
We can have a bigger cast. The reason the cast is as small as it is in the movie is that's about what we can afford to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
Our Lady Victoria, for example, she was known to us, known to Hunter because it's a mutual friend. I'm friend Jason Nord as well, but he had worked with her in Atlanta. Mm. So, like you said, kind of almost happenstance. Now she did audition. There was another lady that auditioned as well, but the auditions were limited. But yeah, we could do it more conventionally. We probably need to do it more conventionally.
Yeah.
Here in Birmingham, in the Birmingham area, you have professional crew here because you have, commercials. You have local television networks and newscasts, and you have people in the business. There's no money basis in Birmingham like there is New York, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Atlanta, London, where you have a theater district.
Right.
So actors can be difficult to come by, but
Well,
if you're able to get the word out enough, they will come to you.
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where I was going because like a friend of mine who has a dream of being an actor. He's never done any acting. His whole thing is because he thinks he lives here in the Birmingham area. He's like, well, I got to go here, I got to go there, and
No, there's all kind of independent films constantly being made. I think.
And that's why I was kind of kicking at is you have a lot of people that may want to do stuff like that, but if they don't know how to get to it, they don't know how to get to guys like you that are putting on something, just unless it's word of mouth or whatever. So,
There's like the Alabama
The
Filmmakers
filmmakers,
page. They always will put up, we need somebody
Yeah.
in this age range for this part. We're going to have auditions, or just send in a tape that you can tape and upload to YouTube for free, and they can see your performance that way. Anybody just wants to get into acting, there's just a plethora of projects always, just needing actors or extras or just somebody to get on
So
set.
we didn't even know that.
Yeah,
All right.
Alabama Filmmakers. You can look them up on Facebook or online. They got a pretty good presence. We're part of it somehow. As far as us, we have Engines of Destiny, both our website, and we have Engines of Destiny, our Facebook page, our Twitter account,
Yeah.
and also there's one called Eugene Destiny. Now, we had to create a personal page to get our professional page up years ago.
Oh, okay.
And so Eugene Destiny is just something we sort of made up. We came down.
No, he's an actual person.
actual
He
person
stepped
who
up.
exists.
Yes, because
It came down to who had the silliest pictures. It came down to Hunter and I. We decided I did. In fact,
Yeah.
I'm wearing this hat in that picture.
There you go.
And it's funny how so many people have come up to me and introduced, "Hey, you must be Eugene." And I'm like, "No, sir. Actually, let me explain something. We're beginning on a lie. Forgive me for that. My name's actually Brian Pace and whatever. But it's funny how people now, they'll introduce themselves to me. "Hey, Eugene, nice to meet you." It's like,
which one is pink?
yeah, you got to think. Do you really think my name's Eugene Destiny?
That would the Eugene. I mean, you could probably pass for.
Well, and I
the
think-
Destiny part.
Because it's Engines of Destiny,
Yeah,
Eugene
Engines
Destiny. I
Destiny.
think actually Dave came up
Yeah.
with it, and so
That's good though.
Yeah, basically, I'm still not on Facebook, and so you pretty much had to have an existing
anchor
person. So we just kind of created this fictitious person that Brian has since.
That's awesome.
Embodied.
assumed his identity.
That's right. That really messes the government up since
That's
they're watching
right.
everybody.
Oh yeah, like, who's this guy?
Who, me? Revenue? Oh no. I'm not Eugene.
That's pretty awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up, but what I want to say is the movie was great.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. I honestly did. I'm going to push for Dan to be in one of your other parts. I really hope that we can convince you guys to work maybe a super bad guy to that deal, because I think he would do good, And he's trimmed down, so he looks completely different.
He
I don't know if
does.
you
He
guys have
does.
seen.
Yeah, he was a good dude, bit bigger when we did our big fight scene at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah. So he looks different now. So I think there's a lot of content there if you let your imagination run wild. But everybody listening, please stay tuned. You have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and it's
Yes.
Engines of Destiny.
Engines of Destiny, Eugene Destiny is an alternative. Our website, which is a little antiquated, but it's Engines of Destiny at obviousnotion.com. And then we have our Twitter. Is it Engines of Destiny?
If you go to obviousnotion.com, you'll find Engines of Destiny pretty quickly.
Okay. Well, everybody check that out. Stay tuned for where you guys can get this movie. I highly recommend the movie. And to me, it just made sense. And hopefully, you guys will do the other two parts if that's in your future. And if anybody's listening, maybe they can reach out to you for some support financially.
I will say, as ambitious as they are, they're cheap.
Okay.
They're cheap. We don't want a lot of money. We just want enough money.
Enough money. Well,
We'll take a lot of money. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I mean, we absolutely will.
Give us everything you got.
everything
Yeah.
you got. But hey, you never know. We might, maybe, Dave here's a great networker. You never know what he might pull up for you. I think you got a good product, and Star Wars started out the same way. So
Yeah.
that's the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your time, and you guys get ready to listen to the show when we push it out today.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Thank you
fantastic.
so much.
Thank you guys for showing up.
Yep.